This is the Framon #2 code machine, which can originate virtually any type of key, including cylinder keys, automotive keys, both domestic and imported, flat locker keys, flat mailbox keys, deposit keys, and also many high-security keys such as Medeco, Emhart, ASA, and Zeiss Icon. All of these keys are originated by use of precision measurements. No accessories are required. You never need to purchase anything other than the machine itself. No cards, no discs, no plates. How can the Framon do this? Because the user has precision control over the X and Y travel of the key vise at all times in increments of 1/1000th of an inch. This allows you to originate keys with root depths as small as 115 thousandths or as great as 400 thousandths. The spacing travel is nearly 1.5 inches, which is over twice the travel required to cut a 5-pin Schlage. The depth and spacing measurements for each cut are set by means of the spacing crank and the depth crank. Once the proper measurements have been set into the machine, the feed handle is pulled, which moves the entire vise assembly against a positive stop, feeding the key blank in a straight line into the cutter, completely eliminating the possibility of overcutting your key. The spindle assembly is equipped with an easy-to-use tilt feature which allows you to originate all Medeco and Emhart keys. The spindle assembly is locked into the correct position by a positive locking detent pin. To illustrate the operation of the Framon machine, we'll originate a Schlage key from code. The basic principles shown here apply to virtually any key that you would originate on the Framon machine. This is the depth and spacing information manual which is supplied along with the Framon machine. This book contains spacing and depth information for over 1,400 different key series. The first step in originating a key is to consult the spacing and depth manual to determine the information that we need to cut the key. In this case, we find that our distance from the shoulder to the first cut is 231 thousandths. The spacing from cut to cut is 156 thousandths. This chart lists all of the depths that we will need to cut our key. In this example, we'll originate a Schlage key with the following cuts bow to tip: 5, 3, 7, 8, 5. Insert the key into the vise using the bottom shoulder of the key against the vise as a stop. If the key does not have a bottom shoulder, use the shoulder stop, but be sure to flip it out of the way before cutting your key. Move the vise all the way to the left by turning the spacing crank counterclockwise. The vise will come to a solid stop against the stop screw. Then turn the spacing crank clockwise to 0. Each revolution of the spacing crank is 50 thousandths of an inch. Turn the crank 4 turns, which will bring us to 200 thousandths, and then advance to 31. Our vise is now in the correct position to make our first cut. The distance from the shoulder to the center of the first cut varies between different manufacturers. This measurement is critical. All of your spacing measurements are based upon this figure. Once the spacing is set for the first cut, we then rotate the spacing block around to the 156 scale. Next, we need to align the first mark on the left-hand side of the spacing block with the pointer on the spacing plate. Once this has been done, we can cut an unlimited number of keys for the same series without ever changing the setting on our machine. Our next step is to set the proper depth for our first cut, which is a number 5 depth, which is 260 thousandths. Each revolution of the depth dial is 50 thousandths of an inch. So we come to 250 thousandths and then advance 10 more thousandths to reach 260 thousandths. We're now ready to make our cut. Start the machine, pull the feed handle until it comes to a complete stop. Rotate the spacing wheel until the second mark on the spacing block aligns with the pointer. Now we're ready to set the depth for our second cut. which is 290 thousandths. Our indicator pointer will be between 250 and 300, and we will read 40 on the dial. To make our second cut, simply pull the feed handle, and then we turn the spacing wheel until the third mark on the block aligns with the pointer. Set our depth for the third cut, which is 230 thousandths. Pull the feed handle again. Then we set our spacing for the fourth cut, set our depth for the fourth depth, which is 215 thousandths, and pull the feed handle. To make our fifth and final cut, we set our spacing for the fifth position, set our depth to 260 thousandths, and pull the feed handle one more time. Our key is now completely cut. Be sure to turn off the machine, and then we can remove our perfectly cut key from the machine. This is the spacing clip which is provided with the Framon machine. This clip is used to align keys which do not have shoulders in the vise properly. This clip is designed to function with three major types of keys. This portion of the clip is used to align best and falcon style keys which use an alignment notch at the tip of the key. This portion of the clip is used to align the 10-cut Ford keys. And this portion of the clip is used to align the standard 5-pin Ford keys and the new Chrysler double-bitted keys. Information on when and how to use the spacing clip is provided in the depth and spacing manual for each key series as required. Use the angled end of the spacing clip for best and falcon keys. The angled end slips underneath the tip and against the stop to provide a positive alignment. The square end of the spacing clip is used for 5-pin Fords and the double-sided Chryslers. Seat the spacing clip firmly against the left side of the vise, slide the key in until it touches, and then tighten the blank in the vise. The notched end of the spacing clip is used with the 10-cut Ford. Seat the notch into the base of the vise on the left side, slide the key blank in until it touches, tighten the vise, and you're ready to originate a key. The Framon Depth and Spacing Manual contains complete information on the use of the spacing clip as well as all other features of the Framon machine. When this machine was introduced in 1970, the book contained 89 different key series. Now it contains over 1,400 different key series, plus pertinent data on cutting each series, such as read code information. Another accessory provided with the Framon machine is this precision stainless steel machinist dial caliper. This caliper can be used for many purposes around a lock shop, but it is provided primarily for adjusting the machine, checking your work, and decoding unknown keys. In addition to the depth and spacing manual and the dial caliper, the Framon machine also includes these components: 4 spacing blocks which give you 48 standard spacings, a general purpose cutter, a Medico cutter, a 45,000 slotter for flat steel and deposit box keys, and an Allen wrench for adjusting the machine. With these components, you can originate keys for all 1,400 different key series without purchasing any other extra components. The standard components supplied with the Framon machine enable you to originate virtually any safe deposit key. However, for locksmiths who do a large volume of safe deposit work, this kit is available as a time saver. The kit contains 3 different spacing blocks and 3 different width slotting cutters. The kit is available in 2 different ways: either the spacing blocks by themselves or just the cutters, and as with all other Framon components, all of them are available individually. All Framon machines are preset at the factory, but if the need arises to adjust your machine, it is a very simple matter to adjust it. All Framon machines are designed to be adjusted in increments of 1/1000th of an inch. To adjust the depth on the Framon machine, begin by making a single cut to a known depth in any scrap key blank. Measure that cut with the dial caliper. If it does not measure out properly, simply loosen the set screw on the depth wheel and reset it to the reading that was indicated by the dial caliper. The spacing is just as easy to adjust. Begin by closing the vise without a key blank in it. Run the vise as far over to the left as it will go, and then bring it back to 106 thousandths. This will place the right-hand edge of the vise exactly parallel to the right-hand edge of the standard cutter. Use a straight edge to compare the two surfaces and make sure that they are parallel. If not, adjust the machine so that they are parallel and then reset the spacing wheel to 106 thousandths the same way that you adjusted the depth wheel. This is the factory set override screw. This screw is not part of the adjusting process. It is factory set and should never be tampered with. You've just seen some of the highlights and capabilities of the Framon No. 2 code machine. Much more information on the machine is contained in the Spacing and Depth Manual, which is provided with the machine. The Framon No. 2 code machine was designed by a locksmith for locksmiths. It is without a doubt the most advanced key-cutting machine in the world today. The Framon Express semi-automatic duplicating machine is the newest addition to the Framon family of precision key machines. This heavy-duty duplicating machine is a lifetime investment in quality. Some of the outstanding features of the Express are its 1/4 horsepower motor, its built-in rod wipers that automatically remove chips from the rods as you cut keys, and a heavy-duty cast aluminum heat-treated chassis. And of course, all the quality and precision features that have made Framon the most respected name in key machines worldwide. The Express machine is designed to be easy to operate. All of the controls are conveniently located on the rear side of the machine where they stay out of your way while you're duplicating keys. The lever has full freedom of movement left and right without contacting the key vices. The on-off switch is mounted directly onto the motor itself. The cutter guide can be easily adjusted in 1/1000ths increments. This means that you can cut a high or low key anytime you want. For example, suppose a customer brought you a General Motors key and you measured it and discovered that it was 10/1000ths worn all the way across. All you would have to do is readjust your cutter guide 10/1000ths up and then cut a corrected key from their original. The cutter on the Express machine is designed for extremely long life. It is made of compressed metal and turns at 1380 RPM. The spacing guide, which is used with keys that have a shoulder stop, is very easy to use. It is spring-loaded and mounted directly to the yoke. To use the spacing guide, insert your pattern key into the left vise, clamp it tightly, then push in and rotate the spacing guide until it makes contact with the shoulder stop. This will automatically place the right-hand stop into the correct position. Slide your key blank into the key vise, push it snugly against the stop, tighten the vise, and then flip the spacing guide down and you're ready to duplicate your key. The movement of the carriage is controlled by the lever handle at the rear of the machine. Moving it up moves the carriage to the right and down to the left. There is a carriage release knob located just to the left of the carriage handle. This knob can be pulled easily with your index finger, releasing the carriage to cut the keys. After you have finished cutting the key, pull downward on the carriage handle and that will lock the carriage back into place. Another handy feature of the Express machine is the reversible vices. To reverse the vise, loosen the wing nut and rotate the upper portion of the vise only. Slide it into place and then retighten the wing nut. The standard side of the vise is used for the majority of key cutting. This side is used for most cylinder keys and most automotive keys. The other side of the vise has a distinctive stair step. This is used for two different types of keys. You can cut keys that have wards near the base of the key blanks, such as some General Motors blanks, some Best and Falcon blanks, or you can use it to shim up small keys such as the Master 7K key blank that might be too small to fit into the standard vise. Each vise is also equipped with a two-position tip stop. The long end of the tip stop is used for spacing keys such as Ford and Chrysler. After the key blank has been tightened into the vise, The tip stop can be rotated out of the way so that it won't come into contact with the guide or the cutter. The short end of the tip stop is used with Best and Falcon keys or any other key blank that spaces from a notch near the tip of the key. Key duplication on the express machine is faster than on most automatic machines. Once the keys have been loaded into the vices, turn on the machine, release the yoke, and then position the hardened steel cutter guide near the bow of the key. Cut the key using the lever handle. The lever operation allows you to cut a key as quickly or as slowly as you wish. If key duplication is an important part of your business, then the Framon Express machine is the duplicator for you. It is fast, easy to use, and extremely accurate. The Framon Express machine, a lifetime investment in quality. This is the Framon TKM 100 tubular key machine. This machine is designed to originate virtually any style of tubular keys. You can easily make keys for Ace, Seagull, Fort, Dynalock, and American. All three different diameter keys can be cut in the same collet. This machine is designed to cut standard cuts, master cuts, ward cuts, and cuts within a cut anywhere around the perimeter of the key to whatever depth is required. The chuck, which is used to hold the key during the cutting process, consists of three major parts: the collets, which hold all three different diameter keys, the chuck closer, which loosens and tightens the collets, and the alignment key, which provides an index for the chuck for locking it in place and holding the spacing plates, which control the spacing. The chuck is locked into position by the chuck lock pin. This prevents the chuck from rotating as you loosen and tighten the chuck closer. To release the chuck, pull out on the pin, which will allow the chuck to rotate in either direction. To lock the chuck into place, turn the alignment pin towards the lock pin and press in on the lock pin. This is one of the 7 different spacing plates which are supplied with the machine. This particular one is for the 7-pin standard Ace locks. This is the one that we'll be using throughout the demonstration. The spacing plate slides over the chuck, and the slot in the spacing plate slips over the alignment key. Then the key blank is inserted into the collets with its guide pointed toward the alignment key. Press the key blank down as far as it will go against the spring and tighten the chuck closure. This position is known as the loading position for the turntable. Pull out on the locking knob and rotate the turntable around to the height setting position. Loosen the chuck closer and the spring will push the key blank up against the height setting shoe. This will place the key blank at the correct height for proper cutting. Retighten the chuck, then rotate the turntable around to the cutting position and release the chuck by pulling out on the lock knob. The side depth adjustment for various diameter keys is controlled by moving the spindle assembly from side to side. Begin by loosening the lock knob on the left side of the spindle assembly. Then rotate the spindle adjustment knob counterclockwise until the spindle assembly reaches the end of its travel. Then turn the knob clockwise until the number 30 aligns with the pointer. This is the proper setting for standard diameter tubular keys. After the setting has been made, be sure to retighten the lock knob before you make your cuts. The depth of the cut is determined by the depth cam. The machine comes with 2 different cams, both of which are double-sided. This is the Chicago cam. The cam slides over the post on the front of the machine. There is a spring detent in the post which locks the cam into position over each cut. The depths are selected by rotating the depth cam until the depth that you wish to cut is directly below the pointer. With the depth cam set for the proper depth, a gentle pressure on the red handle is all it takes to make your cut. Spacing is controlled by rotating the chuck and aligning the numbers on the spacing plate with the index mark on the side of the machine. To illustrate the operation of the TKM 100, we're going to cut a standard 7-pin tubular key. Before we do that, Let's briefly go over the procedure once more. Begin by selecting and installing the correct spacing plate over the chuck, then install the proper depth cam on the post on the front of the spindle assembly. Select the proper key blank and insert it into the chuck, making sure that you press it all the way down into the chuck before you tighten the chuck closer. Then rotate the turntable to the setting position and set the key height. Be sure to firmly tighten the chuck closer. Rotate to the cutting position, release the chuck pin, and rotate the chuck to the number 1 cut as indicated on your spacing plate. Then we're ready to cut the key. Each cut on the key is made by following this routine. First, set the spacing according to the spacing plate, then set the depth on your depth cam, and make the cut by pulling down on the red handle. When the key is completely cut, rotate the turntable back to the load position, push in the lock pin, and release the chuck closer to remove the key from the chuck. With our machine set for the first cut, turn on the machine and grip the chuck with one hand while pressing down on the red handle with the other. Reposition the chuck for cut number 2, set our depth for a number 3 depth, and squeeze the handle. Reposition the chuck for cut number 3, reset our depth to a number 1 depth, squeeze the handle, and we're ready for the next cut. We'll continue on in this fashion until our key has been completely cut. It's important to hold onto the chuck as you're cutting the key to prevent the chuck from turning accidentally while the cut is being made. This would ruin your key. After our final cut has been made, we'll turn off the machine and remove our finished key from the chuck. When the chuck is back around in the load position, loosening the chuck holder will allow the key to snap back up under spring tension. Here's our finished key. Notice that all 7 cuts are around the perimeter of the key and do not penetrate the inner wall of the key. Now that we've seen how to cut a standard diameter tubular key, let's cut a large diameter 10-cut UL key. The depth and spacing on the UL key are identical to the standard ACE key. We'll use the same spacing plate and the same depth cam as we used on the earlier key. All of the cuts are made in exactly the same fashion. The only difference is the change in the side depth in order to accommodate the larger diameter key. We have reset our spindle position from 30 to 40. This information is contained in the information manual, which is provided with the machine. The UL key has cuts within a cut. These cuts are located in the same positions as the standard cuts, but the spindle position is relocated closer to the center of the key. Here we're making our final cut, which is a number 3 cut in the number 7 position. Next, we reset our side depth to 10, which is the correct setting for the master cuts on the large diameter UL key. The spacing and the cut depth remain the same as our standard cuts. Only the side depth changes. Rotate the chuck around to the number 2 cut, set your depth for the number 2, and make your cut within a cut. Then we rotate around to the number 4 cut and make another number 2 cut. Rotate the chuck to the number 6 position, reset our depth to the number 6 depth, and make the 10th and final cut. And here is our finished key. The 7 standard cuts are located around the perimeter of the key, and the 3 master cuts actually penetrate the inside edge of the key blank. This is the instruction and information manual, which is supplied with the TKM machine. This book contains complete instructions for all operations of the machine, as well as spacing and depth information for various manufacturers of tubular keys. Here is a portion of one of the charts which is included in the manual. This chart gives you important information for decoding various manufacturers' tubular keys. This chart is provided as a reference for checking the accuracy of all 3 different diameter tubular keys that the Framon TKM machine can originate. Here is the information chart for the standard 7-pin tubular keys. This chart gives you the depth of each of the cuts and spacing for standard and master cuts as well as ward cuts. This chart provides all of the cutting information necessary to cut the UL keys, the depth of cuts, the spacing plates to use, the measurements for standard cuts, master cuts, and ward cuts. One of the components supplied with the TKM 100 machine is this precision depth indicator, which has been specially adapted for decoding tubular keys to 1/1000th of an inch measurements. Place the probe of the dial indicator into the cut on the key and push the key solidly against the seat to decode that cut. Then compare the reading to the chart to determine the cut. The dial indicator comes factory preset, but if it ever needs adjusting, it's very easy to do. Simply place the probe against any flat surface, loosen the lock screw, and rotate the dial until it reads 0. Retighten the lock screw, and the dial indicator is re-zeroed. The TKM 100 is the most versatile tubular key machine in the world. In addition to the machine, the information and instruction manual, you also receive 6 custom spacing plates, 1 universal spacing plate used for odd spacings, 2 depth cams, which are double-sided, and the depth indicator. This allows you to cut virtually any type of tubular key. The Framon TKM 100 was designed with versatility in mind. This machine is capable of not just duplicating, but originating all standard types of tubular keys, now and in the future. This is the Framon DBM1 flat key machine. This machine is specifically designed for duplication of flat keys, such as safe deposit keys, locker keys, and flat steel keys. This machine combines plunge cutting with depth increments that are adjustable in 1/1000th of an inch in order to provide you with the utmost in accuracy for duplicating such keys as safe deposit keys. The cutter guide itself is spring-loaded so that each individual cut can be aligned with the cutter guide before the key blank contacts the cutter wheel. This is the most accurate type of cutting, known as plunge cutting. The thickness of the cutter guide itself is quickly and easily adjustable for the 6 most common thickness cutters. To change the thickness of the cutter guide, loosen the set screw and rotate the guide around to the desired position. Each thickness is clearly stamped on the guide itself. Retighten the set screw, and you're ready to begin cutting at your new thickness. The cutter wheels are also designed to be easily and quickly changed. Insert an Allen wrench into the hole provided in the spindle. Never attempt to hold the spindle in place with a pair of pliers. This could damage the spindle. Loosen the nut which secures the cutter wheel in place and remove the nut. There is a bushing beneath the nut which is concave on the underside. It is important to always replace the bushing in the correct position. 5 different solid carbide cutters are available for the DBM1 machine, ranging in thickness from 35/1000ths to 88/1000ths. The 100/1000th thickness can be cut by using a 45 and a 55/1000ths cutter together. Once the cutter is back on the machine, retighten the nut, making sure that you do not over-tighten the nut. It does not need to be much more than finger tight. Bring the Allen wrench up to lock the spindle and gently tighten the nut. To provide absolute accuracy, the keys are aligned directly with the cutter guide and the cutter itself. After the key is inserted, the cutter guide is pushed back and locked into the alignment position. Once both of the keys are in the vices, raise the carriage and align the pattern key with the side of the cutter guide. Then loosen the blank and align it with the cutter directly. Retighten the vise and you're ready to begin cutting your key. Be sure to release the cutter guide from the alignment position before starting. When you place your keys in the vices, make sure that the pattern key overhangs the left edge of the pattern vise. This will prevent the cutter from cutting into the vise when you make your tip cut. Then, align each individual cut with the cutter guide and raise the carriage to make each cut. If your cut is wider than the width of the cutter blade, then cut the two sides of the cut first and then cut the center portion of the cut out. Because the DBM1 machine is designed to use solid carbide cutters, avoid any side-to-side motion of the carriage while you're making your cuts. Use a straight in and out cutting procedure. After all of the working cuts have been made, move up to the throat cut, cut one side of it, and then the other side of the throat cut, and then take out the remaining piece of metal in the center of the throat cut. And our key is complete. The depth setting on the DBM1 machine is factory preset, but if it ever needs adjusting, it's very easy to do. Loosen the set screw in the adjustment knob and rotate the knob. The hash marks on the knob represent 1/1000th of an inch change in depth. The depth adjustment can be very easily checked by inserting two identical key blanks into the machine, one in each vise. Raise the carriage to the cutting position and then rotate the cutter by hand through one complete revolution. It should just barely touch the key blank. Then start the machine and check it again in several positions on the blank. Once again, the cutter should just barely touch the key blank. The DBM1 machine requires very little maintenance, but every few months you should lubricate the moving parts. The cutter guide assembly can be easily lubricated by removing the lock screw. Drop a single drop of oil into the opening. Do not over-lubricate any part on the machine. Generally, cleanliness is much more important than lubrication. Any excess oil should be wiped off to prevent the accumulation of dirt and grime. The rod that the carriage travels on is referred to as the yoke rod. It too should be lubricated occasionally. Apply a few drops of oil to each end of the rod and then move the carriage from side to side to evenly distribute the oil. Once again, wipe off any excess oil to prevent the accumulation of dirt, metal chips, and general grime. The vice stud should also be lubricated occasionally. Unscrew the wing nut completely off the end of the shaft, and then apply a single drop of oil to the threads on the shaft. The Framon DBM1 machine, like all Framon key machines, uses precision sealed bearings on the cutter shaft that never need lubrication. The DBM1 machine is a specialized key machine that is designed to do a single job and do it extremely well. The precise craftsmanship found on all Framon machines makes the DBM1 machine the easiest to use, most versatile, and above all, most accurate machine in the world for duplicating flat keys. The CD300 code duplication machine is the only code machine in the world that is also a precision key duplication machine. This machine is designed to originate and duplicate virtually any automotive key. The secret of the CD300's amazing versatility is the removable depth cam. 7 of these cams allow you to originate and duplicate over 500 different code series. Because many different code series use the same depths, a single depth cam will cut many different series. For instance, the cam that comes with the machine will originate Ford, General Motors, American Motors, and Chrysler keys. Spacing is controlled by the use of these inexpensive spacing keys, which can be purchased individually, or you can make them yourself with virtually any type of code cutting equipment. In use as a code machine, the spring-loaded cutter guide moves against a positive stop provided by the rotating depth cam. The depth cam is rotated to select the individual depths. The positive stop completely eliminates the possibility of overcutting your keys. To use the CD300 as a duplication machine, all you have to do is rotate any of the depth cams to a number 1 position. If you wish, you can eliminate the spring-loaded action of the cutter by pressing it in and locking it into place with the Allen wrench, which is provided with the machine. Let's see how to originate a 5-pin Ford key from code. Begin by putting the correct spacing key in the right-hand vise of the machine. Bring it against the tip stop and tighten. Then insert your key blank into the left-hand vise against the tip stop and tighten the vise. Next, select the first depth that you wish to cut on your depth cam, which in this case is a number 2. Since the Pin Tumbler Fords and Pin Tumbler Chryslers use the same depth increments, both series are labeled on the single depth cam. Start the machine and center the spacing guide in the first cut on your spacing key. Press in to make the cut. Once the cut has been made, reset the depth cam to your next depth, which in this case is a 3. Make the second cut just as you did your first, and then reset the depth cam to the number 5 depth. Place the cutter guide in the number 3 position and make the cut. Then reset our depth cam to the number 1 depth. Make the fourth cut, and then we're ready to reset our depth cam to a number 4 depth for our final cut. Make the final cut, turn off the machine, and then we're ready to repeat the same procedure on the other side of the key. The manual supplied with the CD300 machine includes a list of over 500 different code series along with the spacing keys and depth cams required to cut those series. The number 1 depth cam and 5 different spacing keys are supplied with the machine. With these you can originate keys for General Motors, American Motors, both Pin Tumbler and the 10-cut Ford series, and the Pin Tumbler Chryslers. The additional depth cams and spacing keys are all available individually, so you can purchase just the ones that you need. And the spacing keys can be made with virtually any type of code cutting equipment. Like all Framon machines, the CD300 is available at 12 volts DC as well as 110 volts. This, coupled with the rugged reliability that is built into all Framon key machines, makes the CD300 the outstanding choice for a mobile key cutting operation. The newest addition to the Framon line of precision key cutting machines is the Framon Sidewinder machine. With this extremely versatile machine, you can duplicate and originate keys for virtually any type of high-security automotive application, such as Mercedes, Volvo, Porsche, Lexus, Infiniti, and BMW. The secret of the Sidewinder machine's amazing versatility is that it gives you complete control over every aspect of cutting a key. The movement of the key vices along the X and Y axis can be controlled in a number of different ways. You can adjust the machine so that it has spring tension from either the right-hand side of the machine, the left-hand side of the machine, or so that it is spring-loaded in either direction. And the amount of tension on the key vices is completely adjustable. And of course, you can set the vices so that they are completely free for complete manual control over the key cutting operation. The in and out movement of the vices can be done completely manually, or it can be screw-fed both in and out. The screw-feed mechanism features a quick release which automatically disengages when the carriage reaches the end of its travel. To accommodate the wide variety of high-security key blanks in use today, both of the vices on the Sidewinder machine can be quickly and easily reversed. The position of the cutter can also be controlled by the user at all times. It can be lowered to any desired height manually, or it can be locked in at any depth of cut for precision key cutting. The Sidewinder machine accepts a wide variety of different cutters for maximum versatility, and it even provides you with a neat, out-of-the-way place to store all of your cutters. To illustrate exactly how easy the Framon Sidewinder machine is to use, let's go through the entire process of duplicating a high-security automotive key. Always begin by positioning the pattern key in the machine. Raise the stop as far as it will go, place the key against the stop, and tighten the vise. Then lower the stop. Next, we need to adjust our depth of cut. Lower the cutter all the way down until the spring-loaded guide is completely compressed. Once it is in this position, lock the cutter into position. To prevent the guide from binding against the key blank, we back it off by 7/1000ths of an inch. Now, pull the key away from the cutter guide and the guide will snap down. Then, lift the guide up as far as it will go and lock it into place with the thumb screw. Now we're ready to insert the key blank the same way as we did the pattern key. Raise the stop all the way up, slide the blank into place, and tighten the vise. Don't forget to lower the stop. We're now ready to duplicate our key. Be sure to put on your safety glasses before starting the cutter. Because of the direction of rotation of the cutter, you should always work towards the tip on the right side of the blank and away from the tip on the left side. Bring the cutter into place. Allow the guide to follow the contours of the pattern key exactly. Carefully round the tip, keeping the cutter guide in constant contact with the pattern key, and this side of the key will be finished. Now we can turn it over and cut the other side. We'll cut the second side of this key using the screw feed option. Begin by setting the carriage for equal spring tension in both directions. Then lock the screw feed lever into place, turn on the machine, and hold the carriage to the left to prevent the key from contacting the cutter as you bring it into place. Once the key is in the proper position, turn the handle slowly, bringing the key back towards you. Remember, always cut toward the tip on the right side of the key and away from the tip on the left side of the key. Round the tip of the key blank and reverse the direction of the screw feed. Once again, slowly crank the screw feed in until the key is completely cut. Hold pressure against the carriage to prevent the key from contacting the cutter and back it out. Now we can turn off the machine and remove our key. Like all Framon machines, the Sidewinder machine is designed with durability and accuracy in mind. All adjustments are made in units of 1/1000th of an inch, and sealed precision ball bearings are used throughout the machine. All of these factors help make the Framon Sidewinder machine the easiest to use, most durable, and versatile high-security key machine ever made. And you get all of this Framon quality at a very affordable price.